India is a culturally unique and diverse country, currently composed of about 1.3 billion people, with one of the fastest growing economies in the world. If you are watching this documentary, you are probably planning on moving to India and working there in the near future and are interested in understanding the cultural landscape better to make your transition into a new country a little easier. We will be covering a series of topics that will make this possible, including pre-departure considerations, cultural norms, business and work culture, and potential managerial pitfalls to be aware of when working with Indian employees and coworkers. India is located in South Asia between neighboring countries Pakistan, Nepal, China, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and Bhutan. The capital of India is New Delhi, and its most populated cities are Mumbai and Kolkata. India became a country in 1947, when it secured independence from Great Britain after the nearly 200 years of the British rule. This plays an interesting role in Indian culture because they still hold many ties to Western customs and practices that may be familiar to Canadians moving to India. India is currently a federal republic with 29 states and 6 union territories. The currency is Indian rupee, which trades at about 52 rupees to 1 Canadian dollar. India has a mixed economy with the world's 7th largest economy by national GDP and 3rd largest by PPP. India has 22 major official languages, but no official national language. The most widely used language is Hindi, English, and Bengali. However, the languages are specific to the different regions you may be living in, so it is important to research the local language and dialect before you leave. India's primary religion is Hinduism, with 80% of the country identifying as Hindu. Hinduism is characterized by the pursuit of truth and reality, a strive for moral order and right actions, and a promotion of tolerance. Hindus are also typically vegetarian and consider cows to be sacred, and also consider the eating of beef and wearing of leather offensive. The weather in India ranges throughout depending on the region in which you are living in, but predominantly, the climate is subtropical or tropical, with heavy winter and summer monsoons.
Prior to departure, there are several things you need to consider to ensure an easy and safe transition into India, including visas, travel, healthcare, and potential legal concerns. A visa is required for people who hold Canadian passports. Please make sure your passport is valid for 6 months from the date of entry into India. Regular visa processing time takes up to 8 working days and costs about 200 Canadian dollars. The Government of Canada suggests a high degree of caution should be exercised due to a continuing threat of terrorist attacks throughout the country at all times, especially in regions that border Pakistan. Petty crimes such as pickpocketing and purse snatching often occurs, so be sure that your personal belongings, including your passport and other important travel documents, are secure at all times. The climate of India is very different from that of Canada. Natural disasters like flooding happen. The rainy season extends from June to September. Roads and bridges can be damaged, and essential services may not be available due to seasonal flooding. Please keep yourself informed of regional weather forecasts. Avoid disaster areas and follow the evacuation order from local authorities. The air quality of India varies considerably and fluctuates with the seasons. Air pollution is typically the worst in the winter. Many cities frequently experience high levels of air pollution. Dust storms also occurs across northern India, so we recommend that face or mouth masks should be put on when you stay outdoors. Public transportation in India includes air travel, trains, boats, and taxis. When taking the trains and boats, don't board vessels that appear overloaded. Try to get taxis from reputable hotels and only use officially marked taxis. In case of being charged unreasonably, pre-negotiate the fare or ask the meter to be turned on when available. Quality of Indian healthcare services varies greatly throughout the country. Medical care in major cities can be good, but is usually very limited or unavailable in rural areas. Most hospitals in India request upfront payment or confirmation of insurance coverage prior to commencing treatment. Also, in case of serious illness or injury, we recommend you to take a taxi or private car rather than wait for an ambulance. Ambulances are often equipped with basic and old medical equipment, and traffic doesn't yield to emergency vehicles. Please pack a travel health kit, especially if you'll be traveling away from major cities. In India, laws on purchasing and consuming alcohol, including the legal drinking age, differ from state to state. Dry periods are common during religious festivals, elections, and some national holidays. Indian family law is very different from Canadian law. please exercise particular caution when dealing with situations involving family law, such as child custody. We will now dive deeper into the overarching cultural differences between India and Canada, using the Hofstadter framework as our basis for comparison.
As you adjust to life and begin working in India, there are many cultural differences to be aware of before you leave. Indian people tend to have a high degree of power distance, which means that they have an appreciation for hierarchy and a top-down structure in society and in organizations. Employees expect clear direction as to what is expected of them. Indians are used to a high level of control, and it can even be seen as a psychological security. Because of this, attitude toward managers are formal even if one is on a first-name basis. Communication is top-down and directive. Negative feedback is also almost never offered up the ladder. India is a society with both collectivistic and individualistic traits. The collectivist side means that there is a high preference for belonging to a larger social framework in which individuals are expected to act in accordance to the greater good of one's defined group. Individuals are influenced by variables such as one's opinion of one's family, extended family, neighbors, work group, and others such wider social network that they are part of. The employer-employee relationship can be described as an intense loyalty by the employee and almost familial protection by the employer. Hiring and promotion decisions are often made based on the relationships, which are a key to everything in a collectivist society. The individualist aspect of Indian society is seen as a result of the dominant religion or philosophy, which is Hinduism. The Hindus believe in a cycle of death and rebirth, tied to their karmic balance, or some of the positive and negative actions of an individual, which will decide the fate of their soul in the next life. People are therefore individually responsible for the way that they live their lives and the impact it will have upon their rebirth. Indian scores moderately because of this unique combination of individualist action and collectivist mentality. India is also considered a masculine society with a score that is relatively similar to Canada's. India is fairly masculine in terms of visual display of success and power. They value designer brand labels and like to advertise their success. However, there is also a deep culture of spirituality that values humility and abstinence. This is why they have a moderate score in masculinity. India has a medium to low score in uncertainty avoidance because there is a general acceptance of imperfection, and they are a patient culture with a high level of tolerance for the unexpected. Rules are often in place to be circumvented, and one relies on innovative methods to bypass the system. It can be both the cause of complication and strife, as well as one of the most empowering aspects of the country, as there is a sense of nothing is impossible, so long as one knows how to adjust. There is no dominant culture norm when it comes to India's long-term orientation. This relates to how every society has to maintain some links with its own past while dealing with the challenges of the present and future. As a country with strong ties to the ideals of karmic balance, India does not have a linear idea of time and recognizes a changing game plan based on changing reality. There is a general comfort with discovering the fated path as one goes along rather than playing to an exact plan. Indulgence measures the extent to which people try to control their desires and impulses. India scores relatively low in this dimension, indicating that they are a culture of restraint. They do not put much emphasis on leisure time and control their gratification to their desires. Indians feel that they are restrained by social norms and feel that indulging themselves is somewhat wrong.
Understanding the nuances of verbal and nonverbal communication in India will be helpful as you navigate the workplace and negotiations. Namaste is generally used when greeting and saying goodbye. Indians tend to be conflict adverse, and this is evident in their communication style. Direct refusals such as no may be considered to be too harsh, and open disagreement is likely to be interpreted as hostile or aggressive. Indians may use phrases such as maybe or I'll do my best as a way to express no. Additionally, yes can hold several different meanings, and Indians may say yes to show that they're listening to a speaker while indicating disagreement or refusal through their body language. Nonverbal communication is shown through respect for personal space and a lack of touching in Indian culture. Indians tend to keep eye contact at a minimum, as this may seem rude to Canadians, but it is considered more polite in India. They may nod their head out of politeness, but this does not mean they understand or agree with what you're saying. Make sure to gain verbal verification using open-ended questions to avoid ambiguity and misunderstandings. When it comes to punctuality, Indians are flexible and arriving at a meeting 15 minutes late is common. In company meetings, managers tend to dominate the conversation. Meetings seem very informal, and it is possible for several meetings to be conducted by one person at the same time in the same room. The Indian dress code is relatively casual. Male employees will wear trousers and collared shirts to work. A suit and tie can be added when needed or for more senior managers. Often, female workers wear a colorful salwar kameez. As a manager coming to India, you are not expected to engage in work which could be undertaken by somebody lower down the organization, and doing this is likely to damage your reputation and credibility. Managers are expected to give direct and specific instructions to subordinates, and subordinates are expected to carry out the instructions accordingly. Subordinates will tend to not take immediate initiative unless directly instructed. It is not considered intrusive for the leader to take a detailed interest in the work of individuals within the team, which could be perceived as micromanaging in Western culture. As in all relationship-driven culture, business entertaining is an important part of the whole commercial process. Take every opportunity to eat with your Indian colleagues and clients. This shows interest and respect in entering as a new member of the organization. Many Indians are vegetarian, but it is perfectly acceptable to choose a meat dish, even if your host chooses vegetarian. Eating in India can seem like an informal affair where the use of hands and eating is perfectly permissible, often even in high-class restaurants. It is always more polite to eat with the right hand than it is the left. When holding negotiations, take time to develop personal relationships with the other party. When making small talk with Indian people, avoid touchy or taboo subjects such as India's poverty, the caste system, and immigration. Negotiations may go at a slower pace than in many Western cultures, so be patient. The Indian party may be more flexible to negotiate compromise between meetings when they have the opportunity to check in with their superiors. You might benefit from taking several breaks to give them ample time to communicate with their bosses. They will often try to reach a price or figure indirectly through thoroughly discussing all benefits of the deal. Contracts should be viewed as a starting point rather than a fixed agreement. Indians can regard contracts as more of agreements of willingness to do business.
We hope that the information that you have learned in this video will help make your move into India smoother and more enjoyable. Remember to stay open-minded and step outside of your comfort zone to engage and appreciate all that India has to offer. Namaste.